Hey there, welcome to the Marketing Stream. I'm your host, Vicki O'Neill, your Plateau to Grow marketer. If you're joining me live, thank you so much for being here. If you are joining me live, if you could just drop your name and where you're joining me from in the comments, I would love to know who's here. If you're watching the replay, leave a comment. Let me know what your favorite part of this video is. I would love to hear from you. So today, we are going to continue the 6 steps to creating content for the customer journey. I've already reviewed define, which was the first step, and that was all about identifying where your target customers are spending time. So it's your personas. Then it goes into the know, like, and trust process. So I covered know, which is helping your ideal customers start to get to know you a little bit, your brand awareness and who you are and how you can help them solve their problems. And then going into like, which is what I discussed last week, and different types of content that you can post that will help them get to know you and like you on a little bit of a deeper level. So it's all about understanding your personality, what problems you solve, how you've solved those problems for other people, and ultimately helping your target audience navigate that process to ultimately buying from you. And that is the goal, or doing business with you. So looking at this week's topic, which is all about trust. If you haven't downloaded the document yet, there is a link in the comments where you can download it's essentially a workbook that I created to help navigate this process. And there is one page dedicated to each one of the 6 steps. So like this week, it's trust. I've got my notes on here. And then there's a second page farther in the document that looks like this. And it's a workbook type page. Just some things for you to think about, questions to ask yourself, so that when you're creating content, you're creating it for your ideal audience. Those people who are looking for a solution, they just don't know who they want to buy from yet. And that is something that's so critical. So if you don't have your personas created yet, I highly recommend you go and watch the first video in this series, and that helps navigate that process and what to do. I also have a podcast episode, which is number 3 of Connect the Dots, which is my podcast that talks all about connecting the dots between marketing and sales, or marketing and your customer, and all kinds of different things, marketing and sales related. So if you go to connectthedotspodcast.com, it'll take you to a page on my website, and just scroll all the way down until you see episode number 3, which talks about personas. And I go deeper into that conversation through that podcast episode. So if you don't have those created, stop this video, go watch video number 1 in this series, which was from 3 weeks ago, and watch that first. And then once you've got those defined, then come back and continue watching this video. It'll just be a lot more helpful, and you'll understand then when you start creating content, the value and the importance of creating the content with an emotional response or emotional trigger in mind of your target audience. And then also just the type of content that you can write for them, and how to leverage and maximize your marketing budget and your marketing resources to better navigate that process and connect with more people who are actually your ideal customers. So hopefully that helps. Okay, diving into trust today. So we've navigated this process up to this point. You know where your ideal customers are spending time. You know that you need to help them get to know you better. They're starting to like you. But as we all know, people buy from people they trust. Okay. Most consumers today don't even trust brands. So a brand advertising their products and solutions is less trustworthy than a customer or a buyer of that particular product or service posting about their successes or recommendations or their experience with that particular brand. So navigating this customer experience or the customer journey is step 1 and priority number 1 in helping your ideal target customers not just find you, but giving them a great experience along the way. And that's something that if you can make it seamless and frictionless, then that's going to bode well for you. And when, not if, when they buy from you, that's going to be part of their talking points. If they talk to somebody else and make that recommendation, they're going to talk about the experience. The product or service or solution that you sell, they can get that anywhere. People are going to buy from people that they trust, and you earn that trust through the experiences that you provide to them and the experience that they have with your brand from that moment that they become aware of you. So keep that in mind. Okay, so different types of content. Again, this is not the first time, most likely, that someone is seeing your brand. If it is, they see it, they move on because they're not at that stage yet where they trust you. So when you're posting content for your ideal target audience, at that point where they're just like, I think I'm interested in buying from this company and I think I trust them, but I'm just not sure yet. That's when you need to continue that process of helping them make that decision. And how you can do that, and I review it on this sheet, is different types of ways that you can do that are through like online chat. Online chat, even if you don't have it, it's just a matter of responding in a timely manner and in a respectful way and in an extremely helpful way so that a question that they have of you and your brand, someone is available to respond and get them the information that they need when they need it. So making yourself available. Now, of course, we can't, as a person, be available 24/7, right? But the thing is to respond as quickly as possible. If you can establish your hours of operation, for me, as a small business owner, then people are going to understand that I'm not available 24/7. So by listing my hours of operation, if you go to like Google My Business, all of my hours are listed there, and I'm available a lot. And even after hours, I'm still available. I'm just not active or as active. So my hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, I make myself available until 1 p.m. And then Sundays, I do like to just have one day where I can just decompress and not be involved at all. That's for my mental health and just needing to take a step away so that the next week I'm fully engaged, really energized, and can commit and devote my highest energy level and with the most enthusiasm that's there for you. So make yourself available and be responsive and be respectful and understand that people have needs and they're not going to make themselves available based on your schedule. You need to make yourself available based on their schedule. So just keep that in mind. Another way to do that is to help build trust is through testimonials. Now, testimonials can be used anywhere, right? Anytime you see a testimonial from a peer, not from a company, then it kind of gets your attention, especially if it's something that you've been thinking about, not even if you're not at this trust phase yet as a consumer. It's something that'll at least get your attention. I know it does mine. So if I see something I'm interested, I'm going to read it just out of curiosity, because that's going to help plant that seed and kind of solidify that process for them that it's okay. Go ahead and pursue this particular solution or this particular brand. They're still likely to go through that process, but keep in mind that not everybody goes through the same process. Not everybody enters at the awareness phase or at the starting to get to know you phase. Some people, like I just said, might enter and see a testimonial. That might be their trigger for like, oh yeah, I hadn't even considered that brand. But if they don't know who that testimonial is, and maybe there's only one, at least it's something there to get that process started. And then they're more likely to say, okay, let me go out and do some research and then start their process themselves. So keep in mind that it's not a fluid process all the time. And sometimes people are going to enter into that buying journey and then they're going to exit. And then they might come back in later, or they might leave and never come back. So keep that in mind that when you're creating the content, that it's not always going to be a linear process, no matter where they are, even though people are going to find you in different places. Okay. So another one is through tips and advice. So at this point, they've done their research, they know what their options are. So at this point, they may have narrowed down their product solutions, service provider options down to 2 or 3, and you're one of them. So at this point, how are you going to help them make that decision? Maybe it's giving them tips and advice on how this solution is going to help them. Again, it's not about me or it's not about you. It's about the customer. So keep that in mind that when you're giving any types of tips or advice, it's all about here's how you can use this information, which brings me to a good point. I had it all on a whiteboard. I just don't have any place to set it right now. So I think I'll do it either next week or the following week when I'm done with the process. But walking through each of the steps so that I can share an example with you from the time of identifying a persona and walking through that process so that you can see it from an outside perspective looking in. It's not just me saying it. It's here's an example. Here's how this information applies. It's not just information, overload or information dump. It's here's how you can apply this information. And that's meant to solidify it and help you understand how you can apply it with your own process and the content that you're creating for each step along that customer journey. Okay, so if someone's looking, they're trying to make a decision between those 2 or 3 options on who they're going to buy from. If you're or if I'm providing tips on here's how you can make, this problem go away, and that's the final piece of the puzzle, and you are the one that helps them complete that puzzle, then you're going to be pushed up to the top. So keep that in mind that if you can help along that way, then you're more likely going to be chosen. So 5 techniques that you could use to help this process along. Again, we're in the trust phase of the know, like, and trust buying journey. Number 1 is be available. So we kind of talked about that in the content idea of online chat or just being responsive and respectful. So just making yourself available. I think as long as you have a presence where your target audience is spending time and they tag you or they mention you or they send you a DM or any type of engagement with you, as long as you're making yourself available to them with a question, then that is key. That is going to help just build that trust even more and help them make that decision that you're the one for them. Okay, number 2 is adopt a customer-centric approach in your company. This isn't a customer service department. This is looking at every department or every person, or even if it's just you, having a customer-centric approach in everything that you do. And that is everybody from the HR person who's hiring, or if you're outsourcing and have employees, direct employees, or if you're just working with other people, that's still part of this process. You don't have to have an HR manager to actually make that happen, but having a customer-centric approach that you share with all team members, whether they're employees, contractors, or whatnot, just letting them know that this is the approach that we're going to take, and everybody needs to be involved in that process. Okay, so set the standards, help them understand their role in that process, how they can help serve the customers in their particular area of expertise. Even if, it's an IT person, even if it's in operations or product development or accounting, that's important. Accounting gets kind of left by the wayside a lot of times because we think of them as only issuing the bill to the customer asking for payment. Oh my gosh, that's the best time to incorporate a customer-centric approach and working with marketing and understanding how that message can be conveyed in an invoice, because we're asking them for money. And granted, we've given them something in return, but we're asking them for money. So why does it need to be just a mundane invoice that you're sending out like everybody else does, when you could add some type of memorable comment or something more memorable that helps them say, oh my gosh, this business was awesome. They may have sent me an invoice, but here's how they did it. And make it talk worthy. That's unique. That's different. So look at different ways that you can do that too, and include all departments, all team members, all partners, whoever is involved in helping you with your brand, get them involved. Okay, the third way is through your branding and messaging consistency. As you might imagine, that your brand, your logo, your messaging, your mantra, your mission, whatever you're putting out there publicly to your target audience, that there needs to be consistency across the board. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, if you're on your website, is the messaging consistent across the board? When you have that type of consistency and you've got a target customer who's evaluating you for a potential purchase and they're weighing you against other people or other providers, if you're the only one who's being consistent everywhere, then that builds trust. They're like, oh, okay, this person's the same everywhere. So that's going to get you some extra points in being pushed to the top of the list of trusting you. So that's important. If that's something you need to do and do kind of like a digital review or digital presence review, make sure that you do that. That's just as important as having personas created. So if you haven't done that in a while, I highly recommend that you do that. If you need someone to do that, I love doing that. Just reach out to me, send me a message here on YouTube, send me a message on my website, anywhere you feel comfortable, I'll be responsive. Okay, the fourth way is through customer services and I can't read my writing. Let me see here. Customer, see, this is the thing about going live, even though you may be watching this through a replay, but this is important because it's on my list. Customer reviews and testimonials, that's what it is. I've mentioned that before, and this again can't be reinforced enough. So even if it's on like LinkedIn, if you've got recommendations or if you need to add recommendations, because that's where the most time is spent by your target audience, then by all means, ask people for recommendations. If that's where they're spending time, that's where they're doing most of their research, then it needs to be present. It needs to be available to them so that they can include that as part of their research and help them make that decision on, hey, this person is trustworthy. I need to, again, push them to the top of the list. Okay. And just think that, I mentioned this earlier too, but here's a stat associated with that, is that 83% of consumers trust other peers' recommendations and testimonials. So if you're putting all of your kudos on your website or, wherever, and it's you talking about your own brand and how great you are, you're going to be dismissed. They want to hear about other people's, other customers, other peers' recommendations, reviews, testimonials, success stories, anything that they have. They're going to trust that more often from someone else than they are going to trust it from you. So just make that information available on your website, on the social media profiles, wherever they're spending time, make that information available so it's there when they need it. Okay. And the last thing is content marketing, which is what this whole series is about, right? It's a 6-week series. Each week on these live videos, I'm reviewing one step in the customer journey process and how you can create content for each of those steps. And with this step being about creating trust, these are the techniques and the examples, like the live chat, the testimonials, the tips and advice, the different ways that you can help create content and just make yourself available in order to help your target customers increase the trust factor with your brand. So 61% of people do business with a company that has consistent information. They are more likely, let me get back to this here too, because I can't read my writing. I abbreviate things at the time it makes sense. And then when I'm trying to read it, it doesn't. Have you ever done that before? So 61% of people are more likely to do business with a company that publishes unique content. So if you're putting information out there just like everybody else in your market, in your industry, other companies like you that are serving the same target audience, if it's the same as everybody else, it's going to be dismissed. They want to see something unique from you. What is your company? What can your company do or provide to them that can help them understand here's how other people like you have used our product, and here's how they gain trust in our product and our service or solution, and the reason why they continued to do business with us. They continued to trust us, and that's why they left this recommendation or this testimonial. So keep that in mind. And if you haven't downloaded the 6 steps to creating content for the customer journey, again, this is just one of the steps. I highly recommend that you do that via the link in the comments. And if you don't have your personas created already, I recommend that you go back and do that first and foremost. When you have those in place, it makes everything else, content, your marketing, your sales, your processes, everything else just easier. So I recommend that you do that if you don't have it already. If you have questions, please leave me a comment. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Or if you need help with any of these steps along your customer journey, creating content, coming up with a marketing strategy, creating any of these types of documents, I have resources that can help with those as well. Just let me know. Happy to help. And if you're here and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. I think it's in this corner. Go ahead and hit subscribe and then the bell notification so that you're notified when I go live and post any other content. So if you've joined me today live, thank you so much for being here. If you're watching the replay, I appreciate you coming back and watching this video. If I don't hear from you in the comments, make today great. And I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Thank you.